it's a little bubble bursting, I think, situation, and I feel bad about it. Especially, and I think we all understand. I guess people over here filmmaking is that when I show this film in US, there's a completely different, absolutely a different take on it. Like, why is this happening? What the hell? What is Congress doing about it? And I was at MIF actually a few months back, and when I showed this film over there, they were like, अपनी माँ से प्यार नहीं है, why do people really want to stay there? Just come back. But I think what people need to understand in India specifically, that this is not such a black and white issue. It's not really that easy that you just go there and one fine day, come on, this is not working out, let's just go back. Because try to understand whoever goes there, and I was talking to a friend of mine that whoever leaves India, or for that matter any country in the world, and moves to some other place, just understand the inherent quality they have as a person. I think it is not about giving up, right? So most people who are moving there are they are scientists, engineers, they are educators, they are doctors. So they are not the kind of people who are really easily going to give up. So what they say, okay, immigration is just one component, that is challenging for me, right? Along with other things that I'm tackling.
Similar situation like you that I've chosen to come back.
Yeah.
Been through all of it in the US and Canada. I think your film is very important for India. Your impact campaign in India is going to be extremely important, not so much to dissuade people.
True.
No, to take away the shame of not doing it. I have a nephew who committed suicide because he couldn't tell his parents that it's not working out. So I'm just saying that, the people in India need to know. I have somebody in the family who says, "Arey, tum log to bahar chale gaye, udhar to kitna acha hai aapke liye." They don't know the struggle that everybody goes through, right? And Canada is not easy, I can tell you that as well, even though it's a different system. So my point being that I think your impact campaign in India has to not be so much about dissuading or the US consulate telling you why have you made this, because we still need to fund our universities with the Indian students, because if they stop going like what's happening in Canada now,
there's no asking the question of why is America desirable in the first place.
Totally.
I mean, what is it that people want to do there, and why is that the best place to do it in?
The American.
I didn't want
Why,
to say that.
why do I have to go from here to America to do something useful with my life? I studied and came back because I wanted to work in India. I'm not saying this is an ethical thing. I'm just saying this in terms of, I'm just curious because for me, America is the cause of most of the problems of the world. It's not the country that solves the problems of the world. It creates them. It sells 50% of the world's weapons are made in America and sold by America. It creates wars all over the world. It's right now funding a genocide in Palestine. It has done that throughout. It was done when I went to university in America. They were doing it in Vietnam, and we were fighting that at that moment. So there's no. So I'm not saying that should be in the film, but it should be in the conversation afterwards at least. That why is this a desirable place, or why is this a country that everybody's dying to go there even if it kills them?
She was mentioning all of this is good from an awareness standpoint, right? But if you were to dissect different stakeholders of this system and work out edge cases, I think there should be a very strong call to action from all of this awareness, which I think can be a very, very strong next step.
First question that came to mind is that while we talk about Indian immigrants, there would be a lot of non-Hindu people, right? I mean, there would be Muslims in particular. I'm curious about that.
Okay.
So, you were thinking about doing the film, and because they're all Hindus.
I did not even
And
think
also
about
there is huge amount of Punjabis, obviously, and which perhaps don't belong to this category of people who are highly educated. I mean, there are, I'm not saying there aren't, but there are a lot of people who go there to do work in service industry as well. So, could you please talk about what
No, that's an interesting point. I mean, honestly, when I started looking for different characters, because I was very sure that I want to tell a human story, And so that was the biggest, as a filmmaker, that was the biggest challenge, how to how to kind of bring in both the things, the information as well as the emotion, because otherwise it will become a tutorial on immigration, right? What is H1B, H4, H4A? Focusing on which are these high-skilled immigrants who are working in different jobs. So that's why I was very sure, and I was very sure I don't want to just go to Silicon Valley and start, talking to a bunch of engineers, but instead, in fact, I did not go to Silicon Valley. I chose, people from other parts of the country. So it was more about, going to different locations in the US, targeting different professions. Like somebody who is working as a psychologist is, I would say, not something very common, for a H1B from India, right? Mostly it is computer scientists or, scientists in different allied fields of, life sciences or anything. Not even educators, but we couldn't find an educator in that sense.
And if I could add to that also, because I think a lot of what Vidyut and my connection also happened to be because I was an activist dealing with, speaking to US Congress and everything. And I think one of the things that we brought up again and again was that to the US immigration system, we're just Indians. There were a lot of Muslims, there were a lot of Dalits in the backlog. And there were people who would very rightfully say we will be persecuted if we go back to India, but they do not qualify for asylum, refugee status. You have good jobs. What are you worried about? So, so the issue was that we had to recognize that we have defined ourselves how the US immigration system saw us. They didn't care if you were Dalit, they didn't care if you were Muslim, they didn't care if you were a woman in an abusive relationship. You are an Indian, and we have enough of you guys. So the thing was, our frustration was that we were subject to this per country cap, but the per country cap doesn't come in the H1B. So we would be told, why do you want this? Why all the Indians want these green cards? We will have too many Indians. I was like, if you're so concerned about diversity, fucking apply that at the H1B level. Tell me how your country will run. So the thing was that we actually said that this is so frustrating because of course there is internal fighting. We're Indians. So South Asians, right? There was such a breakdown in the South Asian community because they were like, these fucking Indians, they want all the green cards. So we were having all these fights with other South Asians who were so sick of the green card talk conversation. And we were like, please don't make this about religion. Please don't make this about religion. Please know that there are a lot of Muslims in the backlog. There are a lot of Dalits in the backlog. They will all suffer because they are only Indian to the US immigration system. So I think a lot of time when Vidyut and I started talking, it ended up actually being about how do we articulate this issue in a way that will actually reach the US voter. Because immigrants don't have a vote, they have a voice. And when we were advocating the way we were advocating in US Congress, supposed democracy, the country that pretends that it's the hallmark of democracy is such a sham. And I can tell you that because I have spoken to the holders of that democracy. And I'm like, man, in our country, we call it a bribe, you call it lobbying.
Come with that awareness, what is the reality? It shouldn't be like, okay, one fine day, okay, US is giving you this opportunity. Because as she said very rightly, there is no cap at the level of F1 visa. Right. They will never say, Indian students, we will cap you at 7%. Because remember, 25% of all the international students, who come there to the US, 25% of them are Indians. We just recorded 270,000 students from India moved to US this year in 2023. So India is one of the largest, migrants. Like we have Indian students migrating to US. So all we are saying that if you want to really cap it at that level. F1, H1, they do not cap it. Because that absolutely helps the economy, right? I'm a UX designer that's my daytime job as a user experience designer. And we all are, trained to design for edge cases. So I feel India is an edge case for US immigration. They never thought about it that if immigrants from a highly populous country like India, they move there, what is going to happen? Like almost more than 75% of H1B holders are Indian immigrants. There you go. Everything just goes haywire because then they just couldn't handle it, because if 75% of H1B holders are coming from India, just hypothetically, let's just say even if 60% of them, decide to even move forward with their green cards, there is already a backlog there.
The other kind of immigrants are farm workers. And if those of us with resources don't advocate for immigrants, then what are we even doing there? So our push to Congress was reform the immigration system, and we are giving you proof. Even immigrants with resources are dying because the number of people dying of heart attacks, so I think it was a lot of like having to tell people, guys, like जाओ लेकिन प्यार में पड़ गए तो सोच लो मतलब.
Yeah, another aspect. Yeah, maybe after listening to all this, it's very logical to think, then what are you guys doing about it? People who are over there. Like I'm an American citizen now, so I'm a happy American citizen, I would say. But what happens is, and I think Geetika, you'll agree to this, is that I really call the Indian diaspora in the US. I divide them between haves and have-nots. So yeah, there is a big divide between haves and have-nots. They never come together. Right? They never come together, so there is no cohesive, there is no uniform voice fighting for it. There are literally hundreds of people like Geetika. Geetika was an absolute, she is still an advocate, for a high-scale immigration issue.
For immigration, but in India you mentioned that some people would watch this and say, "Hey, that's so unpatriotic." That's one reaction that you kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's also, I mean, to be honest, after a point I kind of tuned out because this kind of DACA and all this. The minutiae of immigration in the US. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's a little alien to me. In the sense I couldn't really connect. And you said, they're like, oh, let's solve it. What do we do to solve it? But in India, what is apart from oh, these guys are so unpatriotic, which I don't agree with that sentiment. Do you find that there is a
where 70% of the students wanted to go to US, so that was a little bit of a. I felt like they felt very devastated. They were very utterly silent, and I said, "What happened?" Then the head of the department said, "Well, you've shown a film to students who wanted to go to US, and now you're." So yeah, then in Delhi, at the India Habitat, when I screened it, it was interesting. There was this one young kid, or one young man who got up and said, I actually had I have got selected at Columbia, but now I'm having second thoughts about it. I'm like, no, please don't do that. Go study, but have an informed decision about, why you're going there, what you're going to do there, because now you have some kind of, information available. That's the only objective.
We're stuck in the same rut where we want to go somewhere else despite all this.
Yeah.
Courage or a lot of perseverance to make a film like this.
Thank you.
So, and now that it's here, I really hope that you're able to spread the awareness, because it's one thing to see something wrong or to experience it yourself, but you've actually done. Yeah, because that's a tangible goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for
Yeah.
your kind words. Because you know what? I think there is a solution. People have already thought about the solution as this, but there is no intent.
You brought it out. Yeah, I never
That's-
thought of this solution, but when I
Yeah.
saw the film, I'm like, you got it.